You pay for the popcorn and you wince. A small bag, a handful of corn, and it costs more than your ticket sometimes. You assume the cinema is gouging you, squeezing every last coin out of a captive crowd. That is true. But it is not the real story. Here is the real story. The cinema barely makes a penny from your ticket. The popcorn is not the ripoff on top of the business. The popcorn is the business. To see why, follow the money from your ticket. You hand over your cash at the box office. It feels like that money stays in the building. It does not. Most of it leaves almost immediately. It goes back to the film studio that made the movie. The cinema does not own the film. It is renting it for a few weeks from the people who made it, and the rental terms are brutal. In the opening week of a big release, the studio can take the overwhelming majority of every ticket sold, the lion's share. The cinema is left with a thin sliver. Why so lopsided? Because the studio holds all the power. You did not come to see this cinema. You came to see this film. On opening weekend, the film is the only thing that matters, and the studio knows it. So the studio writes a contract that bleeds the early weeks dry. The newer the film, the bigger the studio's cut. There is even a floor written into some of these deals. The studio names a minimum it must be paid no matter how few tickets sell. The cinema can run a quiet night and still owe the studio the same, which sets up a strange, quiet war. The studio wants its money up front while the film is hot. The cinema wants the film to cool down so it can finally keep a larger share. The longer a film stays in the building, the more of each ticket the cinema gets to keep. But by then, the crowds have thinned and the seats are half empty. So think about what the cinema is actually left holding. A packed opening weekend, hundreds of people through the doors, and almost none of that ticket money is theirs to keep. The seats are full, the till is empty. A cinema that lived on tickets alone would have gone dark long ago, so it does not live on tickets. It lives on what you buy on the way in. And this is where the popcorn comes in. Popcorn is the cheapest food on earth to sell. A sack of kernels costs almost nothing, and one kernel puffs up to many times its size. You are paying for air. The corn itself in that bag you just bought cost the cinema pennies. The salt and the oil cost almost nothing. The bag might cost more than what is inside it. Everything else you hand over is profit. That is why the popcorn is expensive. Not in spite of the business model. Because of it. The ticket draws you in. The studio takes the ticket. The popcorn pays the rent. The same goes for the fizzy drink. A cup of ice, a splash of syrup, a hiss of soda water. Pennies in, pounds out. The cinema is not really a place that shows films. It is a snack shop with a film bolted on to get you through the door. The film is the bait. The counter is the hook. This is why a cinema will happily sell you a cheap ticket on a quiet Tuesday. The ticket was never the point. They just want you inside, walking past the counter, hungry. Now look at the layout of the building again. The screens are tucked away at the back. The food counter is the first thing you see, lit up bright, wide as a shopfront. That was not an accident. That counter is the actual cinema. The screens are just the reason you walk past it. You always thought the snacks were an add-on. A little extra sold to a captive audience on top of the main event. You had it backwards. The film was the add-on. The food was the main event all along. The next time you stand in that queue, watch where your money goes. The ticket pays a studio in another country. The popcorn keeps the lights on in the room you are standing in. So you are not being overcharged for popcorn at the cinema. You are paying for the cinema, and the popcorn is just where they hid the bill. Now you know.